You're welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I am Christian Ogodo. This year's theme for the International Day of the Girl is Girl Force, Unscripted and Unstoppable. Following the BBC documentary that uncovered sex for grades in Nigerian institutions, President Muhammadu Buhari has called for stricter laws against sexual harassment in Nigerian schools. The revelations of sexual harassment have spurred an amendment to extant laws in the National Assembly. Also, as the world commemorates the International Day of the Girl Child with the theme Girl Force, Unscripted and Unstoppable, wife of the President Aisha Buhari has called on parents to protect their children from all forms of violence and abuse. For more on these issues, I've now been joined by Lemi Ugegbe, is the Director of Communications and Advocacy, Make a Difference, and by Barrister Esther Uzoma, who is the alternate chairperson, Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room. Very warm welcome. I was almost tempted to say gentlemen, you know, Esther, you temper. No, you're a bulldozer. Yes, you're a girl, I know. But let me start from the Director of Communications, Lemi Ugegbe, on do we have enough extant laws? I know the Deputy President of the Senate had a bill that, you know, couldn't be assented to by the president. And some of you are saying the provisions of punishments in that bill are even too soft. It's been reintroduced. Quickly?
Okay, I think that in truth, it's not for want of laws. Perhaps we can improve on the laws. We can make the laws more stringent as a disincentive for offenders, okay, perpetrators of gender violence and sexual molestations, like we saw in the universities from the documentary. The sexual harassment prohibition bill, for instance, sponsored by the Deputy Senate President, it's Senator Ovioma Agege. It's wonderful, at least the fact that he could have thought that up even in the 8th Assembly. And of course, the 8th Assembly passed it, but unfortunately, it missed the assent of the president. Yes, they've reintroduced it now, and I really think that it's too, the penalty sought by that bill is too lenient.
For some of the violations.
Yes, for instance, it says that if you are found to sleep with a student or to sleep with a student, sexual harassment bill for tertiary institutions. If you're found to sleep with a student and you are tried and convicted, the provision is that you should be given 5 years jail term maximum and 2 as minimum. I do think that it's not stringent enough. We should be talking about 10 years for such a violation. 1, if you sleep with your student, irrespective of age. But if that child is found, that student is found to be a minor under the age of 18, it amounts clearly to a violation of a minor rape, and because she's not, or he or she is not within the age of consent. At that level, the law should be such that the person is punished more seriously. Some of us are even saying that the penalty for rape is not strong enough in the first place. We should, in this sexual harassment bill, be talking about, even some of us are suggesting chemical castration of rapists. Yeah.
Esther screamed, you know, as a law officer, she's he said the laws are there, you know, it's not a matter of the inadequacy or adequacy of it. Maybe the willingness, you know, to even prosecute some of the offenders, and even those who have been violated find it difficult to even come out. Some only come out years after, where probably the wrecks of the matter may have been damaged.
You see, what Comrade Lemi said, I agree with him. We do not have issues with laws. Look at the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. That law criminalizes sexual harassment. All right, whether it's in the university, whether it's at home. That's a fantastic legislation. That law is the law that envisages rape, marital rape. All right? Now...
Marital rape.
That's right.
Between husband and
you
wife.
You heard me, marital rape.
Please,
that is a fantastic...
No, so that Nigerians can be educated.
All right.
Don't forget that we operate in a cultural environment and the rest, cultural, religious. So when is it considered rape between a husband and a wife?
Any time you do not have your the consent of your spouse, anytime at all, once you force your spouse.
Spouses could be the man or the woman.
That's right. The law is fantastic. It's the first legislation that says, for instance, that you can rape a man. Beautiful legislation. Before now, it was inconceivable under our laws that a man can be raped. How do you rape a man? How do you force a willing horse to drink water? People have argued. But that law is now coming in section 1. Say, listen, a person is said to commit rape. A person, when he or she, all right, has sexual intercourse or intrudes the mouth, the ear, or any of the openings.
Even the eyes.
That's right. Any of the openings with any object in a sexual manner. That is huge, because there are perverted people. Sex has gone beyond penile vaginal contact. Remember the celebrated honorable member that went to buy sex toys? The law is now saying, listen, you can't rape somebody with toys. And you don't have to put it in those biological, or if you set it in the mouth against the person's will. That law says you have committed rape. So we don't have any problem at all with laws, like Remy said. We do not have. Within the existing legal framework, you know, we can do well. But something bad is happening. We have Nigerian men, particularly people in the north. They have shown consistently that they have an unquenchable appetite for babies. Look at the reports from Save the Children, for instance. They are saying that over 90% of persons married in Jigawa tops the list. They just love to marry babies. Babies.
Maybe that's why they are not
love diapers.
They are not assenting to the Child Rights Act.
So that is why, until we come to the problem, is not laws. People are not willing to change. And to make it worse, to make it so unbearable and heartbreaking, they hide under religion. And some clear Muslim scholars have come out to say there's nothing religious about it. Saudi Arabia prohibits child marriage. Is that permission that you can marry a child? That also gives them, they think, oh, if I can marry a child, why can't I have sex with a child? So the problem, you know, is not about laws.
So now the problem here is that there must be reorientation, cultural reorientation.
That's
first
right.
With the adults, then before the children involved, because these are people who cannot think for themselves. And
right.
Of course, there are a lot of inhibitions, lack of education and the rest. That is lack of exposure generally. What is a CSO like MAD doing to redress this?
Okay, it really has to do with a lot of advocacy and sensitization.
That's right.
Interestingly, I would say one of the leading lights in the north, Emir of Kano, Sanusi, has been leading very responsibly and responsively on this matter. There is no religion that enables you to be a pedophile.
That's right.
For God's sake, how do you even get to the inconceivable level of saying you want to have sexual relations with anybody under the age of 18? Our laws frown at it, but unfortunately, again, we talk about culture. But if you have somebody in the mold and image and reputation and prestige of Emir Sanusi, coming out repeatedly to speak. Of course, because of culture, a lot of the people whom he's speaking to do not wish to hear it.
That's right.
But what do? We must intensify our advocacies and campaigns, working with traditional leaders, traditional rulers, working again also with religious-based organization, and working with parents. Above all, the Child Rights Act, which recommends education as a must for children, because I cannot even imagine. The Child Rights Act has been passed since 2003, and yet 11 of the core states guilty of pedophilia in the name of religion, which is not true, is baseless. There's no religion that allows it. 11 of those states will not pass the act. But we are not going to be daunted. We'll remain undaunted. We'll remain resolute to ensure that we continue to speak. We continue to be the voice for the girl child and seek education particularly, because UNICEF came out with statistics last year and said over just about 45% of girls are in school in the north. And in the northeast, is of that figure, 69% are from the northeast among those who are not in school. So how do you get that done? Until you liberate the children to and help them think before they can get up and also resist this. Education is the equalizer, and we must continue to work to get them educated. Why? On teaching those pedophiles who say they are relying on culture and religion to do this damage they are doing to our wonderful girl child.
Okay, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll be looking at how, further to redress this issue further. You're still watching the Arise interview. We've got more to come. Stay with us. You're welcome back to the Arise interview, and I still have in the studio from my immediate left Esther Uzoma. She's a lawyer and the alternate chair, Nigerian Society, Civil Society Situation Room, and Lemi Ugegbe, who is the Communications Director, Make a Difference. Let's look at the trending incident in Nigerian universities, particularly the University of Lagos, where the lecturer, very obvious. The one in Ife is being sentenced to jail, accelerated case, but there are several cases that are still pending, destroying the lives of these innocent girls. Some of them getting into university even before they were 16. My own daughter got into the university before she was 16. She's in 500 level now, a graduating year. So I just can't, bring oneself to bear such harassment. And look at the other girl that had to drop out of school because of the persistent harassment. Not that her academic potentials or quality were in doubt, but she became helpless, hopeless, and disenchanted. What can civil society organizations do? What kind of, information restitution, if we want to say, do you give to these young ladies and men?
Yes, you see, let's disintegrate this scenario. That video has been trending. The university is not divorced from the Nigerian society.
Absolutely. It's a microcosm of the Nigerian society. In
the Nigerian society, there's sex for food. Sex for food was celebrated, at IDP camps. That is where you find the most vulnerable. That is how our society treats its vulnerable. At the IDP camps, people who have been displaced by violence, you now insist that they will sleep with you before you give them food. It was celebrated, sex for food. And yes, in the bigger Nigerian circle, there's also sex for rent, for shelter, sex for job. All right, sex is a currency. Hey, let's snap out of it. People pay with sex. And persons have come to accept sex extent. When if you want to provoke the criminal justice system, particularly from the police, you gotta pay with sex. Yes, I mean you provoke the criminal justice system.
Some of the experiences that
yes, in my line of work, yes,
there is.
Myrex. And so the other day, Frontline News, by Kemi Yusufu, my friend, published the young girl said, in this police station, I was repeatedly sexually assaulted over time. That's just the most recent. And so you find, therefore, that the lecturer who lives in the society, who knows about the currency of sex, when he goes to the university, of course he will expect such payment.
Somebody who is paid to impart knowledge.
We're talking sex. We are talking about sex. It's not about knowledge. It's not about what he does. What about sex for anointing? Sex for prophecy? Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Everywhere, sex is an accepted means of payment. And so let me tell you, the truth of the matter is that this lecturer did what was so wrong. But the larger truth, the degeneracy in the society, the vulgar, unmitigated degeneracy, the crippling of our criminal justice system. Do you know how difficult it is, to provoke the law when a girl says she's been sexually harassed? It is extremely difficult. And so, what happens? Even in UK, it happens. In the universities, okay, they pay to gag it. And so this lecturer is just reflecting what happens in the Nigerian society. That is it. That is, so it's not, we cannot sanitize the universities. Clap on the lecturers. I mean, it's happening everywhere.
How do we sanitize the system?
The only way to do it is to strengthen that criminal justice system. It must not be a weak process. The way the Nigerian police is the only police I know in the world, they are not respected. They are
well respected outside Nigeria. The United Nations organization has often poured wonderful conium accolades on the Nigerian police performance.
But the police we have is a police that's struggling with civil space with the Nigerian army. That is the one we have. As in, Nami gets here. No, now you get here. How many? So if our police are not properly equipped, believe me, they can't do any magic. They cannot. Do you know that the easiest thing, fingerprints? Do you know that police stations where people report, do you know they can't carry out such tests? You think it's the barest minimum. When somebody is raped, he goes to a police station, you collect samples. Is that not what you do? First thing, do you know where we do it? They want to collect samples. Do you know where it's done? It's crazy. Rwanda has launched their first smartphone. They're sending satellites. What are we doing? We're still chasing after girls. We want to make them bright. We want to make them bright in the name of God in this time and age. So what we must begin to do, civil society giving the necessary support, and above all, whenever it happens, that conspiracy of silence, say, hey, don't talk, people will not marry you again. Listen, we are breaking all that. If it happens, shout it to the moon, okay? What we have to shame the violators. Let's shame the lecturer. Let's shame the pastor who will lay hands with an erection. Let's shame let's shame the imam who will violate little boys in his care. I mean, we must bring them out in the open and then tell the world how terrible these people are. Let's shame the caregiver who insists on sex for food. Government will give you food, give to people in IT camp. You insist on sleeping with them before giving them food. I mean, this is Nigeria.
Now, she's laid out so much of the escapades, in the society that people face. What remediatory actions can be taken?
Well, I really think that first in emphasizing that indeed the sex for grade, sex for food, all of these happens, our society has degenerated to an abysmal level.
That's right.
Where all of these seem to be the new normal. You, even speaking against it, are the abnormal in this situation. Now, what can we do? We will not be discouraged. The beauty of it is that even in the University of Lagos, I dare say that it is not news to the management of the university.
That's right.
The only difference is that this time around they've got them on tape and they now cannot deny, they are embarrassed because it's been documented. And as a result, we must insist that justice take its full course.
Okay.
Now, that's a deterrent. What we must do is to continue to insist that the laws are strengthened, they are improved upon, they are there, they should be improved upon, they should be more stringent, and insist that we follow. Civil society must not allow the news has broken, we're all in some hysteria, and 1 week after it's gone, we rest on our guards. And that is why we must commend all of those who have been doing a lot to the girl-child struggle, especially to Ochanya Elizabeth Ogbanje, the 13-year-old girl who was raped serially for 8 years and sodomized till she died. In commemoration of the Girl-Child Day, I like the fact that I can bring to us that only yesterday, the suspect who sodomized and raped her was rearranged properly now at a court of competent jurisdiction, High Court in Makurdi, and he's been remanded again in prison custody. We must keep the fight up in order to check the degeneration of society.
Very quickly, Esther.
Yes.
Very apt theme for this year's Girl Child Day.
Yeah, unscripted. You see, the girl, there's so much about the girl child. The future truly depends on her. She is the one who will become the woman. She's the one who will become the mother. She's the one who will bet the next generation. So let us pay attention to the girl child. Let's love her, educate her, let her become.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let's love her. Let's pay attention. Let's educate her. Let's give her good health, and society will be the best for it. Esther Uzoma, lawyer and alternate chair, Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room. And Lemi Ugegbe, thanks very much for the Ochanya updates. Lemi Ugegbe is the Director of Communications, Make a Difference. Well, that's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Remember to join us again for a fresh edition. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, goodbye and thanks for watching.